The future of voice AI is here. What's going on? What's going on? It's your boy, Storyseller Jet, with another episode of the That's So Fire talk show. And today, we are going to be talking about smartphone and AI and a lot of really cool topics. But super excited to have my friend here, Jordan, in the show. Let's go. What's going on, Jordan?
Fantastic to be here in this pretty amazing place. I got to tell you, it's first time here, and I am excited to see it. And it meets and exceeds what I was expecting.
Super excited to have you. By the way, we recently met at the mastermind, the family mastermind this week in Jacksonville, which was a super fantastic event. Put together by Matt Andrews and Francis Oblola. Mind blown with the amazing people that were in the room. So shout out to Matt Andrews, Francis at the Family Mastermind. Super grateful for the opportunity to be in the room. But welcome here, man. Welcome in the studio. I'm super excited for the conversation that we are going to have today. So we're going to start by doing a quick introduction of who Jordan Samuel Fleming is, and then we'll delve into the conversation. Ready?
Absolutely.
Let's go. So who is Jordan Samuel Fleming?
Well, technically, I am the chairman of Smartphone. And Smartphone is the only phone system that's built for real estate investors. It is a SaaS platform. And, I've kind of gone on a journey over my adult life from being a musician to being a business owner to starting and being the CEO of a software company. And now I've transitioned to being the chairman of that company. And I'm only 47, so I think getting the chairman title at this age,
it's pretty good.
It meets it.
Yeah. I'm super excited to actually talk to you about that because I think that's a really cool evolution from being CEO of a company and now sitting in the chairman seat. So before we get started, and I want people to have like a deeper understanding of who you are, and let's talk a little bit about your journey, okay? So what is your origin story? You mentioned that you were a musician and you've done a few other things. Paint the picture for us. Like, what's the journey that you've been through?
I think the real origin story is that since I was a very young kid, I have done things my own way. And that set the scene for everything. And I don't mean that in an obstinate, well, sometimes it's an obstinate way, but I have always, my whole life, I have pretty much done what I feel like, gone where I want to go.
Yeah.
And not really ever been constrained by, can you do it? Should you do it? None of those mattered. I sort of kind of, and the arc of my story and my life isn't a straight line like most of us, but mine's really weird because I went from being a musician to then I went like doing postgraduate. Then I worked in scuba diving and I did cave diving and ice diving and shipwreck diving to starting a business with no experience to then going into software. I've had a meandering kind of arc, but it's an arc that perfectly suits what I was interested in and what fascinated me. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of been the story of who I am from each part of my life. It's because I was deeply fascinated by it.
Yeah, that's really cool. What instruments do you play?
Well, I started out at a very, very young age. My dad, little story there. My dad took me to. Have you ever seen the movie Amadeus?
I have not.
Okay, watch it. Amadeus came out in like 1982 or something like that. I was probably 4, and my dad went to see it in the cinema. It's about Mozart, and my dad went to see it in the cinema. And she said to my mom, "Oh, Jordan needs to see this," and she's like, "You're nuts! It's a 2.5-hour adult movie." And he's 4. And apparently I went with him and I was riveted the entire time. Wow. And I came back singing the music.
Wow.
And not in a kind of prodigy way, but in a sort of, I fell in love with music. And since then my family put me into music. So I did the piano thing, but I hated piano. And I found the saxophone. And I found the saxophone at a very young age, started playing the saxophone, and that took me into university. I started playing guitar in bands to get girls, and I sort of, and then I started conducting in orchestras, and I started kind of expanding, and it was down to a fascination and love of music, and I found a way around it.
Yeah, that's incredible. I grew up in a very musical family as well. My dad plays all the instruments. My brother, who is running the show over here, plays the drum. My sister is an incredible singer. I can sing a little bit, but not very, 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 very good like my sister and my dad. But like for me, when I was growing up, to feel like I was fitting in the whole family, I started a recording studio. So that was kind of my venture. Like I told my dad, "Hey, I want to learn how to play the bass," and he handed me a guitar. Same thing with like a piano. Like I had all the instruments at my disposal. He got really upset when I gave a friend the keyboard that he gave me so I can learn how to play. But it's very fascinating, music and all of that. And actually earlier this week, I was having a conversation with somebody and they were talking about music and business, which I think is very interesting. Obviously, the expansion of the minds and all of that, like learning how to play music. What correlations do you see, or what lessons that you've learned from music that has translated into business for you?
Well, mine was actually very direct. So I was doing a PhD at the University of Edinburgh in Scotland in music. And what I was working on was this idea of three-dimensional analysis of music, and this is very relevant to business. So, and what I was doing was, most people analyze music in a two-dimensional sense. They look at the horizontal plane, so rhythm and melody. They look at the vertical plane, so pitch or harmony, chords, etc. And that's it. That's where traditional music analysis sort of stops. And when you're conducting an orchestra or writing music for an orchestra, a string quartet, whatever like that is, you're dealing with many lines of music, all of which not only have a structural in that horizontal and vertical, the rhythms and the harmony, but it also has a third dimension, which is how each individual part works together.
Yeah.
And that's what I was kind of investing my time in when I was doing my PhD. And when I decided to go into business right after my PhD, I created a consultancy. I had no experience in business or anything like that. And I sort of asked myself, well, how would I analyze this business if I was doing it? And I went back to exactly what I did in my PhD, and I thought, well, I analyze it in a three-dimensional way. And that if you think about business problems, most people look at strategies as a very sort of static thing. They create a strategy and they execute it. But the truth is, it's a very living thing. Mm-hmm. And the parts of your business work together, not just as sort of adjacent or connected, but there is a hierarchy of how much impact each has on each other. And so that I genuinely transitioned all that work in music and the thinking in music, and it helped me build a consultancy because my take on the business was unique because of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you think about harmony as well, like if you have a team that you're running, like a business that you're running, all the team members and the business needs to work in harmony with each other. So that's kind of the same thing too with like music as well. Like leading the orchestra, you have to have the bass player work well with the pianist or the drum players and all the people coming together to make a melody, make it sound good. If somebody's playing in a completely different note, it's gonna become like a cacophony. Is that how you say the
cacophony?
Yeah,
cacophony. Yeah.
That's my French. My French kind of sounds like that. So, yeah, that's awesome.
And actually, your analogy to the conductor is exactly right. Having been a CEO for 8 years of a company that grew from 3 people to 65 or thereabouts, I can't remember exactly what it was. The role of a CEO, when you're a 2-person band, people call themselves CEO of like a 3-person company. Like, okay, I mean, because titles don't really matter at all. But actually, the CEO role, when you start to build a scaled business, 40 people, 50 people, 60 people, et cetera, where we got to, that CEO role becomes more of a conductor role than ever. Because really, you don't execute. As a conductor, I don't play the violin. I don't, play a woodwind. I don't do that. My job is to put it all together in a 3-dimensional space. And as a CEO, you don't execute very often individual roles. You have people for that. Your job as a CEO is the placement of the chess pieces. Your job is the monitoring of the executive team and the senior management to make sure they're doing and the things that you need to do. You need to set that stage and kind of continually adjust it. So that the analogy between a CEO and a conductor, I think, is almost direct, and it's not one that most people will ever understand because very few CEOs have ever conducted orchestras.
Yeah,
and vice
sure.
versa.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So now you were in the music world, and then you transitioned to like doing like deep sea diving or something like that, which I did not expect when you said that. That's kind of cool. What made you, I guess, pursue that route and kind of starting that as a job?
Yeah, so I started when I was doing my master's. I learned to scuba dive at the University of Edinburgh, and I fell in love with it. The camaraderie. Some of my closest friends today, the people who I can always rely on, come from that time. And when I started doing my PhD, I needed money, and so I started working in the dive shop, and I immersed myself into that whole lifestyle. And then, we were doing trips and doing, shipwrecks around Scotland and training people and doing all that. I was fixing all the equipment in the shop and getting involved in the community, got to know me. And then I just I was always fascinated by cave diving. So I went and did that. And then ice diving in the Russian Arctic, and then, deeper dives in shipwrecks and things like that. And it just became, I think another theme from my life is exploration. I'm always curious what's behind that thing or what's around that hill or what's in that cave. And so I tended to go look. And that took me into a good few years where scuba diving became the biggest part of my life.
Wow.
And I traveled around the world doing it, and I did some absolutely amazing, amazing things underwater.
Yeah. What would you say is the most unexpected lesson that you've learned through that journey of scuba diving throughout your life?
I mean, I think the biggest thing I probably learned from scuba diving is a deep calmness under pressure. Because particularly when you're doing cave diving or something like that, there's a binary state when you're cave diving. You're alive or you're dead. And it's like, in a way that, like, cave diving is probably the most dangerous sport in the world, if not. It probably is. And that is because, whereas if you're diving and something goes wrong, that's not good. You probably have buddies there and you can, take care of it and then get to the surface in some way or another and you're fine. If you're inside a cave, particularly by yourself, which a lot of cave diving is done solo, then that's not so good. And if you have a malfunction of your equipment or whatever, you probably don't have the time to get out and the ability to get out. And so you have to be able to deal with a situation that's not going well or that is unexpected, and you have to be able to deal with it very quickly and in a very calm way. It's a similar lesson. I've just started, over the last year, I've started to learn to fly planes, get my pilot's license. And one of the things you realize when you're doing your training is that if something goes wrong in the airplane, you have to take a breath and give yourself and deal with it in a very calm manner. You have the time to do that. You have to focus. Panic is going to get you killed in both of those situations. And thankfully, I think both of them kind of led me to know that I don't panic easily.
Yeah, which is, I think, is probably one of the most underrated skills that a lot of CEO might not have. Because, like, obviously the entrepreneur journey is full with high and lows. And that definitely probably one of the moments that has helped you succeed as a CEO, to operate very calmly under a lot of the pressures that we as entrepreneurs face on a daily basis.
You're 100% right, and I think that is and we've had scenarios. I mean, I can think of at least 3 scenarios in smartphones history where there was an existential crisis for the company, and I was the CEO. And when you're in that, how you deal with crisis as a leader, particularly when you got 50, 60 people and you got a multi-million-dollar company and thousands of companies rely on you, et cetera. When an existential crisis happens, you need to have someone at the top and the control who is able to deal with that situation calmly, who is able to funnel the situation through them, not and not out of ego, but out of creating creating an environment where the crisis can be handled and everybody has the security to do the things they need to do it.
Yeah.
And it's the CEO, if done well, I think you have that CEO who's able to give people the calmness and confidence to be able to deal with that crisis because they see that the CEO is being able to be calm and confident.
Yeah. Obviously, everything follows the top. If the CEO is under pressure and running around with his head on fire and showcasing that every single person from the organization is going to be doing the same thing or feeling the same pressure, and that could potentially be very detriment as they're going through that crisis, for sure.
100% correct.
Yeah. So talking about problems or crisis, can you share with me one of the biggest challenges that you've shared and what was the biggest lesson that you've learned from that?
So my biggest challenges or the smartphone, the company?
It can be both. We can talk about personally first, and then we can transition to the business, but whichever way you want to go with that.
I mean, in some ways they're related. I mean, one of the things I think that no matter how good you are dealing with crisis, and I think I'm pretty good at it, you do also then learn things about yourself you're not necessarily happy about. And as a CEO particularly, I learned some things that I'm happy about how I acted and who I was as a CEO and how I behaved and how I dealt with it. And I learned some things that I wasn't very happy about. And I think, I have never been someone, I've always been someone who takes and holds. So pressure, I'll take your pressure from you. I've spent my life taking other people's pressures and absorbing them for them in some ways, and taking the responsibility on me. I'll be responsible. I'll take that, and that is great in some ways, and is self-destructive if not managed properly. And one thing I learned under crisis and when smartphone was going through crisis is that actually that trait was detrimental to who I was, to how I treated my family, to realizing that I was taking out a burden on them that I wasn't, that I was accepting from the business and I was dishing it out at home. And that's a character flaw in my view. And one that when I realized it and when I kind of was confronted with that stark truth, made me deeply, deeply upset and deeply upset at myself, feeling deeply flawed and quite honestly like a failure.
Yeah.
And they are very twinned together because one fed the other. And thankfully, I guess I recognized it. I haven't fixed it all perfectly yet, but I think I try.
Yeah. Yeah. What advice would you give to the CEO that is basically being that sponge that is attracting every single people is from, their team members' problem or partners or anything? They're absorbing all of that crisis to themselves. What advice would you give them to maybe get out of that or to deal with that better?
I mean, the problem is I'm going to give the answer that I don't follow myself very well. I know what the answer is. I just suck at it. And that is you have to have an outlet of talking. You have to share the burden. I just don't do it very well. Being brutally honest, I was talking to my wife not that long ago, and I realized that I clammed up again and held it on, and But the truth is, I think the only real answer is that you have to find an outlet. Not an outlet like, look, I do boxing. Like I used to do boxing and things like that. Those physical elements and the training and things like that. And you and I talked about the gym the other day. That's absolutely critical to take care of yourself physically and all that. But having an outlet where you can share this, and for me, that outlet for the most part is I'm in a CEO group, a group of 8 of software CEOs, and we share our and I have an outlet when I choose to use it properly. And I think that is the number one thing you need. If you don't have that support and outlet, you're going to hold in on it, and you're either going to explode and hurt someone's feelings or hurt someone physically or whatever, or you're going to have a heart attack. So choose.
Choose wisely.
Yeah, but that you need that outlet. You need that, and I don't mean outlet like venting. I mean sharing. Venting's not sharing, because you can go in a rage and yell and think, "Oh, I got that off my chest." No, you didn't. That's still raging inside you, my man. Huh? Real sharing and unburdening yourself comes not from venting or yelling or any of that, but from sharing the problem with someone else and letting them, in the same way that you're taking other people's burdens, that someone can help and share your burden.
Yeah, absolutely. Talking about sharing, that kind of reminded me of masterminds, because I mean we are part of multiple ones, and shout out again to Matt Andrews from Family Mastermind, and I'm part of a few other ones.
And
Tom Kroll, bam, baby, bam, let's go, bam. I love the coaching community for sure, and my friends at the Collective Genius as well. They're a fantastic group and mastermind, and obviously all of them are in real estate as well. What do you think about the power of being surrounded by like-minded individuals and masterminds?
I mean, if you're not and you're serious about doing something great, then you're an idiot. Like, if you're serious about we have a tendency to God complex people, right? Like Steve Jobs, who was a very impressive man. I'm not trying to, but these sort of the individual as hero of the story, right? Mm-hmm. The self-made 100%. No one is self-made. There's nobody who's in the world who's self-made. We all have people who helped us or guided us or whatever it is. And the idea of, and we sort of fetishize this idea of the entrepreneur as the champion who strives alone. And that's nonsense, because you really want to accomplish something great, you have to accomplish it with people. And masterminds, and particularly I will say, I think the two that I'm in now, which is the family and coaching on Tom, these people, the quality, not only of their accomplishments, but it's the people. People can have accomplishments. I know lots of people who have accomplished a lot and are dickheads. Mm-hmm. The thing that I think separates those masterminds, those people, the people involved in those, is that not only are they incredibly accomplished people, but they're generous and giving of themselves to each other. They're open to discuss. They're open to collaborate and talk and share and support you and take burdens with you and all of that. And that will let you go so much farther when you find those groups of people. Absolutely.
So we are 2 days... 2 days ago, we were at the family. What was the biggest takeaway that you gained from Family Mastermind this week?
I mean, I kind of said it at the end, and one of the biggest ones, kind of what I just said, was it reinforced to me once again the absolute uniqueness, particularly, I mean, I hate to say it, and this is going to sound negative, but in the real estate community, you do have some egos and some people who are assholes. Like, I'm sorry, I'm just gonna say I curse like a sailor normally, and I'm not, because it's your show and I'm respectful. But you got a lot of people who aren't necessarily the people I'd want to have a drink with. And actually, I can't think of many people in the family or coaching that's true of. And when I was sitting there in that room with you on Wednesday, a couple days ago, and listening to everybody share and talk and support, it just crystallized again what a phenomenal group of people these people are. And they're curated because, people like Sarah, who is there, Sarah and Matt, Francis, but like Sarah and Matt and the whole family team and the commission, and they set the tone, just like a CEO and the executive team sets the tone for a company. Matt and his team, and Sarah, who was there helping and in the room and doing such a brilliant job, they set the tone of family. And I think it's a phenomenal thing, and it's not a direct takeaway as though it was one thing I learned, but it's one thing I felt.
Yeah. It was so incredibly awesome. Like, I had the opportunity to, outside of the meeting, to chat with a couple other people. Just in the first 2 hours, I came in with something that I was going to be asking some people. And by just having a conversation with Joe McCall, and he gave me a takeaway that I didn't even need to ask anybody else in this room, because it was spot on. Like, I came home last night before going to bed, like what he told me to do, I entered it in ChatGPT and kind of get the exact same thing that I was looking for. And he gave me the formula that I could incorporate that. That's the power of masterminds, and really enjoyed, if you want to go far, you go alone. If you want to go all the way, I don't know, I probably butcher the saying, but if you want to go, how do you
if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far,
with a bunch of other people. And that's what masterminds kind of does. Even I just mentioned Joe McCall. I think he was a lawyer, I can't remember his name, that presented something about, and then every single person in the room provided some advice that literally blew my mind. And those are some really great strategies that this person could potentially use, and that would change the game for them. And for all the people that were sitting around the room, listening to those as well, they can implement those in their business too, and take their business, 10x their business easily from those ideas.
Yeah, it was phenomenal, and you're absolutely right. And I mean, Joe's a great person to call out in that he's clearly very experienced, very successful. I mean, I've known about Joe for years, but he's also a generous guy. He doesn't have to show up every Thursday or every other Thursday and run those digital sessions that we all attend. He doesn't have to do these things. Most of the people who are very successful, everybody who's very successful in that group, and there aren't that many people who aren't pretty successful.
Yeah.
But they all contribute and support each other. When I think about people who are on stage at the last family, you had Tiff and Josh, and you had the commission folks, and Steve Richards was up there, and all and everybody there who had, Trevor Mock went up from Carrot, and he gave a phenomenal presentation. All very accomplished, very skilled, very successful people who are more than willing to give of themselves. And I think that's again that special element of a good and not every mastermind's like that.
Yeah.
But I think that's the ones that we've mentioned. They're uniquely important because of that.
Yeah, for sure. Talking about Joe McCall, maybe this whole talk show is going to be about Joe, but after Coaching Inc., shout out Tom Kroll again, bam! There was something that he said on stage that was incredible, but I wanted to know exactly how he implemented. He mentioned it on stage, and it was great. And I messaged him and his team, and then they messaged me back and gave me exactly what I was looking for. Who does that? Generous people. And that's why it's so great to be surrounded with those types of people when you go to Mastermind and doing all of that. So yeah, shout out to all of the great masterminds out there. You guys are awesome. Super glad and super excited to be part of organizations like that. So now we've talked about a little bit about that. I would love to know the origin story for Smartphone.
So Smartphone, we are incredibly lucky with what we've accomplished at Smartphone. Smartphone was co-founded by myself and my two. There are four of us who own Smartphone. Two are active in the business. One is sort of silent. But my co-founders, Vlad and Alex, had a company in Romania and building in a platform called Podio. And a lot of their customer base, they have a product called REI Evolution, and a lot of their customer base was real estate investors. I was also building custom systems in Podio at the time, and I had a company doing that called Game Changers. And we met because of a webinar, and I remember very distinctly Vlad, who's taken over from me as CEO and is the kind of technical heart of the company. Vlad and Alex, they both kind of said, look, we should do something together when we met. And I said, I have an idea for a phone system for Podio. And Vlad said, I can build that. and genuinely, we'd only met on a webinar, and we formed the company. I sketched out the product on I sketched it out and gave it to Vlad, and he built it, and we launched it, and it was a perfect storm of the exact right time because everybody was using Podio for real estate, partially because of Joe McCall, by the way.
Really?
Yeah. Joe, yes, there's a whole story there. But partially because of Joe. And everybody is using Podio. And everybody, of course, real estate, what matters? Tracking your phone calls.
Yeah.
Right? Phone calls, text, all that. And there was no good solution. You could cobble some stuff together. We built the phone system, and we had real estate investors, a Podio that we were able to engage with, and a product that was fit for both. And that was the perfect storm. We got there first, we got there best, and we've maintained that title ever since. We then, after we reached a couple $1 million of turnover, we incorporated other CRMs, and we deeply integrated with other ones, and they're great partners to this day. And some of them that you'll know, Carrot and REI Sift, Dataflick, and Left Main, and RealFlow, and High Level, and Forefront, and all these guys. Investor Fuse, which is where Joe McCall was involved with. But the origin was the problem we had was there was a lack of a good phone system for Podio. We built it, and that perfect storm set us off with no investors and really no marketing. And we were able to grow the business, and we're still no investors. We're bootstrapped. We maintain the control of the company, and we're able to drive that forward. And now we went from 0 to 65 people, 0 to just under 10 million. And that was kind of where that was the arc of our journey.
That's incredible. I guess the first question before we delve more into things that you are accomplishing now with a smartphone, I think it might be a question that many people might be thinking about. Obviously, for you to meet those guys and form a partnership with them, what would you say are the making of a successful partnership?
That's hard because I think we're lucky. And I mean, it was tested slightly a little when we made the whole transition from the CEO to chairman, which we could talk about later. But at the core of what made the partnership work is a very deep trust and love for each other. And we hit it off immediately, and we shared our values so specifically, shared our family and what we wanted out of life. None of us wanted to slave away 20 hours a day. When I was CEO, I worked 6 hours a day max.
Wow. Usually
5. So we had a deep share of values and all that, but we also had just a huge trust in each other, and a genuine trust in each other that has meant that even when we had some stress, we actually ended up coming through that stress because the foundation of our relationship was so strong. And it wasn't because we've been buddies for years. No, we'd only met each other. But when you find those people who can align so well with you and that you develop that level of trust, you're almost an unbreakable team.
Yeah. Yeah. As a follow up to that question, what advice would you give to anybody out there that may be considering and going into partnership with some other people, whether it's to start a business or to, create some affiliated opportunities with them?
Well, certainly from a business point of view, one of my top advice is structure the way you're going to have difficult conversations. Because difficult conversations are going to happen, particularly if you're starting a business. You're going to have difficult conversations, and if you hide from those conversations, your partnership will be over before it ever gets off the ground.
Yeah.
You have to be able to have difficult conversations and honest conversations, and you have to look at difficult situations in your business, where something's not working. And you have to be able to do that honestly. And you have to be able to do that in a way that doesn't affect the core element of the partnership and the relationship. And I think a lot of people go into partnerships and they try and gloss over the hard bit. Mm-hmm. And if you do that, you're just putting off the shitstorm that's coming your way. Mm-hmm. Right? So you have to be able to have honest, hard conversations, and not even about each other, but about the business. Is it working? Is this working? Is this person working? Are we losing money? Are we doing whatever? And if you can address situations honestly, then you have a chance. If you can't, you're going to fail, and your partnership will end.
Yeah, for sure. Now let's go back to smartphone. So when did you guys start that exactly? And tell me a little bit about the journey from the start to kind of where you guys are at today.
We started in 2017. As I say, the two companies, I had a company, they had a company. We got together, we formed this project. We did it. We then formed a company. We got it off the ground, and then it kind of took off. And then I was still CEO of the other company, and they still had their companies. And then I very quickly realized once we got to about $1 million, I was like, I can't be CEO of both companies.
Yeah.
So I got to choose. And so I got rid of my old company, and I moved 100% over to smartphone. And then we went on a real growth curve. Over those years, we grew and grew. We sort of consistently were able to grow year on year with zero outbound sales, all inbound.
Wow.
Partially through great partnerships, with people like I mentioned Tiff and Josh, Results Driven. You know them through family. Mm-hmm. We have a great partnership with them. We work very closely with their team, and we collaborate very well. And we have all of the CRMs we connect with, we collaborate really well with. And it's been it's been a real educational journey because, of course, we had companies before. Myself, I had my company, and Vlad and Alex had their company, and we had a certain amount of employees. Nothing like this. And I had never been a CEO of a 60-person company.
Yeah.
I had never, and Alex, who's the CFO, he'd never run the finances for a company turning over $9 million or whatever. Like we never, we had to learn how to adjust, how to build the processes, how to get the company going. We had to make mistakes. It really is a step. When you're growing a business like that, there really are steps. People say that, and it's very true. 0 to 10 people, then 10 to 20, then 20 to 40, and then 40 to 60 are distinct steps in how you're able to build and run the business. And we had to learn all that.
Yeah. If you had to attribute one thing, I know that's probably going to be hard, but if you had to attribute one thing that has contributed to the growth of smartphone from 0 to $9 million, what would you say that was?
Partnerships. Our relationships. Our relationships with our CRMs, our deep relationships with our CRMs, which means that we're so deeply integrated with them that they, that we, by connecting smartphone with your CRM soars. By having your communication deeply integrated with your CRM, you have a superpower. And so the partnership with our CRMs, the partnerships with our affiliates, that our partnership-led approach to things is, I think, the one thing that I would say has contributed most to that growth.
Love it. So you started the business in 2017. How would you say that AI has contributed toward the growth of smartphone?
Contributed to the growth to date, very little. Contributing to the next level of our growth, very large. Yeah, I mean, AI is a paradigm shift. Anybody who thinks that AI is not going to be a foundational element of every part of every business and every part of everybody's life is insane. It is I liken it to, if you think back to the 2000 to the late 90s when the internet, the .com bust, right? Boom and bust. Before that, the internet kind of existed. It was getting off the ground. And of course, we had certain bits before the internet. We had, the ability to do TCP/IP connections, and you had the ability to do the dial-up, all that crap and all that. But once the internet happened, everything in the world changed. There is pre and there is post-internet. That is the truth. Unless you are in a hut somewhere with no electricity, chances are the internet is a part of your life and deeply integrated into everything you do. It's transformational, the shift that happened. And AI is another transformational shift. It is not it's not like it's not like having a video recorder and suddenly you're able to watch your TV shows anywhere. This is a transformational shift that is going to change the way work and life functions in the same way that the internet changed how work and life function.
Yeah. What advice would you give to those people that are very skeptical about using AI in their business today?
Your business is going to go the way of the dinosaur. Now, I'll qualify that. Look, AI, one of the problems we always have is everybody looks for the quick fix. So, back in the day, email marketing, it was cheap because before you had to mail things, you had to print them, you had to post them. And email marketing came and it was like, oh my God, this is cheap and I'll take over the world. Not really true. AI is, if you are resisting AI in your business, you're a fool. If you're thinking AI is going to fix everything in your business, you're a greater fool. But if you think about how you can bring in AI as a foundational element of how you work, as not a set of tools, but as an integrated set of labor, intelligent labor tools that exist in your organization. If you think about the ways that you can bring AI in to accomplish goals in your business and not as quick fixes or shiny things, then you will be able to thrive and accelerate everything you're doing. If you think it's going to fix everything because AI is just I'm going to be able to get rid of everyone and just have AI and it's going to do everything for me and I can just sit back. Well, there's probably a couple cases where that's true, but that's not what AI, where the world's going. The world's going into deeply integrating AI across everything in your business. It's not some sort of panacea that for $49 I'll have a multi-billion-dollar company. That's just not, and we need to get people's mindsets on AI changed a little. We need to stop having people think about it as quick fixes, but we also need to stop having them think about it as software. And we need to start with a agentic model that is now here. We need to start having people think about software and AI and what roles AI can play in their organizational structure, not what gaps it can fill in their technological stack.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like a lot of people are now focused, like when they think about AI, they think about ChatGPT, they think about Claude, Perplexity, or like, any of those tools out there. But one of the biggest way that people are using AI right now is through voice. So, and you are doing some of these kind of stuff as well. But I guess my first question for you in that, what can you do with AI voice technology?
I mean, anything that a human can do almost now. I mean, so the thing about AI voice is, and again, I look at it as augmenting your labor force, not replacing it. AI voice, to do it well, AI voice needs to be, strong enough, HD voice, so it can really get the nuance of conversation. It needs to be built on a strong infrastructure that can scale. And it needs to have an ability to seamlessly integrate memory into it. Now, I'll explain that because this is important. Why do we want AI voice? Well, we want AI voice so that 24/7 we have capabilities of answering, assisting, communicating with people as needed in a consistent and trained manner, right? And the human element that usually produces those results for you has bad days, or their wife cheats on them, or their kids didn't sleep that night, and that. So we rely right now in most businesses on a lower level of people to answer the phones, or to do maintenance tickets for the properties, or to do that kind of qualifying a list and cold calling and all that. And the truth is that when you have built AI properly, so that it has the right skilled training, the infrastructure that can handle and scale, and the memory that can create a through line of conversations and develop those contextual clues to conversations, that is where real relationships happen. When you have that perfect storm together, you have the ability to have supercharged 24/7 voice-enabled AI agents in your organization that'll be more cost-effective and deliver you a far better result, and will never sleep, and will never have a bad day, will never go on sick leave, will never need a holiday, and will never deviate from the training that they do, and will never need to be reminded to hit their KPIs.
Yeah.
And that's where we are now.
Yeah, that's incredible. Like, it's mind-blowing to think how AI has been developed, and now like you can barely notice like the voice, barely notice that they're actually AI. But one thing that you talked about at the mastermind, family mastermind that we just attended recently, is about memory. Why is memory so important for AI voice?
Because when we have conversations with people, whether that's support or sales or whatever it is, when we have conversations, and particularly when we're building a relationship, then the context of conversation is the currency you trade on, right? And I'll give you an example, a real estate example. Say I'm trying to buy someone's house, and I've had maybe 3 conversations with them. And I call them back, and I haven't spoken to them for 3 weeks. And I start that conversation by saying, "Hey, Jet, last time we spoke a couple weeks ago, you were going to speak to your brother about selling this property. Did you have a chance to speak to him?" Well, that right away, you are not doing a cold follow-up. I'm not making you feel like I'm just on a list. You're just, that I've just dialed a list. I have connected with you through our shared experience of the conversations that have gone before. And you may not remember me exactly, but you're going to remember we had a conversation. Oh yeah, we talked, right? That's how humans interact. That's how we build relationships. That's how we build conversations, and how we establish trust. So when we build a voice AI infrastructure, like we have done at Smartphone, where we have built a groundbreaking element of memory in there, where every single communication and conversation that happens in smartphone is broken down and encoded in a way that AI can access it in milliseconds. That means that your AI voice agents are able to build those trust relationships because that context is immediately available. As opposed to in a traditional AI structure, that memory, for want of a, that memory happens through the AI quickly scanning through transcripts. Well, they can't do that fast enough for us to have a conversation about it. But when you build it the way we've built it, we can have those conversations and we can have it instantaneously, that recall. And that means that our conversation flows as fluidly as the one you and I just made the example of.
Yeah.
That's where memory becomes, when you have that, you are building a superpowered ability to build relationships with people. And AI can do that now when you have memory, when you have the infrastructure to do it, and when you have the skilled training in terms of sales skills, soft skills, questioning skills, objection handling skills, empathy skills. You put those three together, and that's a game changer.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is probably why it's so important too, because like we as human, if we're having a bad day, we sometimes like we may not be fully vested into the conversation. And if we didn't have a really good night of sleep prior to, like our memory might not work as well. So for AI, obviously now if you've had 20 conversation and if you have the memory to go and pull from like the first conversation, 20th conversation, now being able to remember every single thing that was communicated, I think this is definitely a game changer as well. So this is really cool. This is really awesome. Do we want to go through the technical things that I think you mentioned at the mastermind that we're at, like how you were accomplishing that, or should we just like maybe?
I mean, it's quite technical, and so I'm not sure everybody would be interested. But I mean, I think the key is that the infrastructure we've developed at Smartphone is such, and it is groundbreaking. It is at the start of an arc that's happening across the telecoms kind of universe. That infrastructure is going to wipe the floor with anybody who doesn't have that infrastructure, because they're never going to be able to build that memory that's accessible in a way that can be used. But when you do crack that code, the results are breathtaking. I'm not going to read out the text for this morning, but Tom, our friend,
bam.
But Tom and I were chatting today just about that, about how impressive results can be when you get, because he had tested our agent, and he was like, "Wow, that the results are clearly there to see and hear when it's built properly."
Yeah. Bam, baby. Now I'm like dropping a bunch of stuff over there, like yeah, I need to get me one of those like roller thing. But so now we talked about AI and memory and all of that. Obviously, for the people that are using smartphone, a lot of them are cold callers and all doing all of that. How do you train cold callers and how they can maintain like accuracy or like performance?
Yeah, so this goes to the human element, because AI isn't technically allowed to cold call right now. But
I didn't know that. That's kind of yeah.
AI, just as an aside, the legislation and the compliance elements around AI are still evolving. But certainly for smartphone, we're not allowing any cold calling with AI. It's way too risky, and I think it's going to go the way that it's going to be classed as an automated dialing system, and it's not going to be allowed. But so cold calling, cold calling is still a very legitimate way of building a deal list, right? Absolutely. Cold calling can be very effective, and it's very legitimate. But you need to train your agents properly, monitor their performance every day, and reinforce and reinforce and reinforce their training every week. And the sad truth is, in the real estate game, a lot of people will go out and they'll hire a VA and they'll do the very basic bit of training, and then they won't really monitor again until maybe next month or whatever. You know, they'll. And if you do that, you are throwing money away, because really, everybody gets complacent, everybody's skills drops, and really successful players will train them well, will monitor their metrics and monitor their performance using AI, and they will reinforce training and reinforce training and reinforce training. And if you get those three things right, you can build an incredibly successful cold calling and just follow-up calling team. If you get any of those wrong, and chances are you're losing money or throwing money away at some point in the business.
Yeah, fantastic. Earlier you mentioned about compliance. How do you navigate telecommunication compliance?
Yeah, I mean, it is a very difficult thing for most business owners. But here's the truth of the telecoms compliance. 90% of telecoms compliance is really pretty simple, right? Like there's lots of complexity and there's lots of variables. And of course, and sadly in the United States, every state has certain bits that are different. And, there's a kind of a patchwork framework there. But the truth is, I always say, look, if you get some basic things right all the time, you're 90% of the way of being compliant. And because most people they don't want to not be compliant. They just don't know. And so like some basic things that I always put in place, I always say is, number one, if you're buying any sort of leads, you need to scrub them properly against the do not call list, and you need to scrub them multiple times. You can't just do it once and then keep calling it for 6 months, right? You need to scrub it against the do not call, scrub it against the known litigator lists, and you need to do that consistently. 2, you need to understand when you're allowed to call, when you're allowed to text based on your state, and abide by them. 3, if anybody ever asks for you not to call them again, you put them on a do not call list internally and you never call them again. And 4th, if you're going to use text messaging, which is a brilliant way of developing relationships, text messaging at this point has a higher bar of compliance than calls. Unless you have prior consent to send someone a text message, you cannot send them a text message. You could call them, but you cannot send them a text message. So if you get those 4 things right, you are a long way to acting in a very compliant way, and you're demonstrating pretty good faith so that if you do have a problem, you should be able to get it through it pretty quickly.
Yeah. I'm glad that you mentioned that, because earlier today I received a text from somebody and they said, do you help with marketing? And I was like curious, and I was like, I have not. How do you get my number? Who is this person? And he says, oh, sorry, I didn't tell my name, and still didn't tell me their name, and then kind of did all of that. So
they didn't tell you, in a text, they didn't tell you their name?
Nope.
See. Yeah, that is a non-compliant text. So actually, one of the things that if you are following up with people by text, even if they've opted in, the first text you send them, you should be clearly identifying your name, the company name, and giving them opt-out instructions. And that should be refreshed every 90 days from their last communication.
Yeah.
And it's a sad truth. If you are a business texting people, you have to go through this. Now, if you're a business texting businesses, so for example, if you're selling to realtors and their phone numbers are on their sites and they're public and all that, and you're texting their business, there's different laws around B2B. But from a B2C, which most real estate investors sit in, those kind of things that I outlined, those are really good basics there. And if you're not going to do them, then it's not like, look, the average fine for like a TCPA fine is anywhere from $1,500 to $5,000 per infringement. So if you buy a list of 1,000 people and you text it and you cold blast it, you are putting yourself at risk of a pretty big fine. And I know people who have paid, $90,000, $100,000, $200,000 fines. How many small real estate investors can afford that? Yeah. So do the basics right, and you'll be able to market effectively, but compliantly.
Yeah. I'm going to ask this question again because it's extremely important. What are some of the implications of doing text messaging or phone calls non-compliantly?
There are there are a couple different elements to the implications. The simplest is monetary, right? Not legal. You're not gonna go to jail for that, but like it's monetary. If you like say you call and make 20 calls to DNC list people and with no rationale for why, you're opening yourself up to 20 times $40,000 fine, $70,000. You're opening yourself up to monetary fine. So that's number one. Two, you're opening yourself up to monetary loss in that if you are non-compliant and the providers, the carriers, whatever, come down on you, you could lose your ability to call or text using your phone lines, your phone numbers for a week or two as they sort out the compliance element. Well, who wants their business to go on hiatus for 2 weeks, right? So there's fines and then there's loss of revenue. And and loss of reputation, because I'll give you an example where loss of reputation happens. If you don't, say you go ahead and you just keep calling the same person over and over again, and even though they've asked you to stop, you are risking your business reputation as well, because they could go on and do all sorts of things on social media. And then the final one, of course, at its worst, is if I've been subpoenaed a number of times for this, is if you get the attention of one of the attorneys general of a state, and they're bringing an action against you. So they've decided that your actions are contrary to what is to the law, and they are going to raise an action against you, and then they subpoena us, and usually, by the way, when the attorneys general of one of the states subpoenas us, I'm not allowed to inform you that they subpoenaed me. So I got to turn over everything I got, and I can't warn you. Now, if a person sues you, which happens as well, usually first of all, I always push back. If we get one of our customers get sued and we get subpoenaed, I'll push back and try and minimize what I send to protect our customers, confidentiality. If it's the attorneys general, I got no legs to stand on. So there are real it is not that hard to operate properly, and it is so worth it. It is so worth it. You're not risking your revenue, you're not risking fines, you're not risking reputation, you're not risking any of that for just doing some really basic things consistently. It's worth it. Yeah. Be compliant.
Yeah. So for the people that may not know about that, maybe a new investor is thinking about delving into cold calling or sending texts. What are some of the laws that they need to follow?
Well, for sending text, you have something called A2P10DLC, which stands for Application to Person 10-Digit Long Code. And that is essentially, so the business texting landscape over the years has been a bit of the wild, wild west, right? Everybody just did whatever the hell they wanted. The carriers then kind of got together, the legacy carriers, the AT&T, Verizon's, T-Mobile's. They got together and they're like, well, we need a piece of this pie. So they created A2P10DLC. It means basically there is very little way as a business you can text without A2P coming into it. And if you choose to not abide by the A2P10DLC kind of campaign and profile that you created, they'll shut your texting down. So if you use a system, if you want to avoid that, use a proper system, register properly with A2P10DLC. Like if you use smartphone, you can do it all within our platform, and take it seriously. Take it seriously to make sure that you're texting properly, and make sure, number one, that you have consent to text. So from a texting point of view, your two biggest things are consent to text and identifying yourself and your business, and opt out. Those are your two biggest things. From a cold calling point of view, cold calling is absolutely still illegal, but you have to obviously worry about when you're allowed. So there are time restrictions of when you're allowed to call. There are the volume of calls you can make to someone, how regularly and how many times within a certain window you can call them. And you have to be careful with the technology you use, because if you use what's called an automated dialing system, where the system just continues to dial and nobody has any sort of interaction, then in many states, in most places, that's illegal. And then you also have to worry, you have to think about as well, just the basics of, people like the idea of a robocall where a system just calls, like, sadly, the politicians do this, but a system that just calls people and then does a pre-recorded message, which the politicians all do, those are illegal. I don't know how the politicians get away with it, but robocalling, and it may sound like a sexy thing to do, but it's very, very illegal. But that's the core bit. Like, a lot of it goes around consent and common sense. If you think, like, in your world, if you think I should be able to buy 100,000 leads and dial them nonstop and bother them on Saturday mornings at 7 a.m. because I know they're going to be in, like, does that sound like common sense to you?
No. Yeah.
So, like, a lot of compliance is just basic common sense and knowing a few of the guardrails. That's why I'm saying, like, people get obsessed by all the intricacies of the law, and there is lots of complexities there. But if you just do some of the basics right, you're going to be 90% of the way there. Yeah. Like, it's not that hard.
Yeah.
So that's, and like, we've got lots of resources. My book's got lots of resources. There's lots of ways you can get very simplified rules of how to do it.
Yeah, for sure. So sometimes I receive a call and I hear nothing from the other end, and then bing, it goes off. What's happening there?
So they're using an automated dialing system, and what they're doing is they're using a multi-line dialer where the system will queue up a certain number of numbers at the same time and dial all of them, and whoever answers the call first will be connected to an agent. And for the ones that don't get answered, they a lot of those big systems will just beep and hang up. And even if you get connected to the agent, you'll know on some of the systems, you'll notice that you'll have silence, a beep, and then the agent will start talking. And that's because the system's dialed, for some of these big companies, 10 numbers, 20 numbers, and then, we've found an agent that we can connect you. That's what's happening there.
That is interesting. So how compliant are those calls? Or is that something that should not be happening?
There is some gray area here. And now I'm not a lawyer and I don't want to speak, I got to be a little careful because there are gray areas depending on states, technology, and what you're doing and who you're doing it to and all that. So I don't want, they're not a black and white, yes, 100% compliant or no, 100% uncompliant. That certainly there are heightened things you need to be aware of when using a dialing system. Now that, again, you can smartphones got Smart Dialer, which is a dialing system, a power dialing system. It's not that you can't use them. You just have to, again, make sure that you get those basics in place when you use them.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah. I think a very key information I would love you to share about that. So what makes smartphone different and better than any of the competitors that you have out there?
For me, absolutely our number one superpower is that we deeply integrate with a series of CRMs. And I don't mean just like, you can webhook or use Zapier and put some information. That's fine. We deeply integrate with the CRMs that we build, we connect with, that we partner with. And I always say when we talk to one of a new CRM to partner with, I always tell them that we're aiming to do smartphone for your system, not with, but for, so that it feels so seamless when someone is using your CRM with our platform, with the smartphone, that it's almost like, my God, how could I not use this? And why that's important is that when you fully connect your phone system and your CRM, you have an absolute sales and support, customer service support superpower. Because every call, every text, every video call, every AI agent call, every voicemail, everything is connected seamlessly to the leads you're working on, to the customers you have all of that, and so that you're able to see the full relationship, get that 360 view of everything in your system, and and the efficiency that you have to be able to call and text and communicate and have conversations with people when you're able to click the number, have it dial, speak to the person, the recordings immediately available, the transcripts available, everything seamlessly works. That's a superpower. And that deep connection we have with our partnering CRMs, we actually rebuild parts of smartphone with the different CRMs so that we work the way they work. And nobody else is going to do that. That's why smartphone, if you're using one of the CRMs we connect with, smartphone's always going to be your best choice because we're going to be the best fit for your CRM.
Absolutely love it. That's awesome. So as a real estate investor, how do you set up communication for success?
That's a great question. And I'm going to go veer slightly by saying your number one step is your data. Good data, clean data, organized data is an absolute vital part of setting yourselves up for success properly. Because bad data not only wastes time and money, and it does, but bad data can kill your reputation. I wrote a story in the book about a scenario that I saw in life. I just changed the names, where you had a set of agents calling because the CRM had really dirty data in there and duplicate data and all that. And this woman, I think her name was Linda. In the book, I said Linda. She was in your CRM 5 times. So you had 4 different agents call 12 different times in the space of a day because your data was bad, dirty, and disorganized. Well, what did doing that happen? Well, not only is Linda never going to sell you her house, but she's going to hate your company.
Yeah.
You've destroyed that entire relationship. And not because she wouldn't have sold you your house, but because your bad data meant that your performance, you've driven her out through bad data. So when you're starting, I say get your data and keep your data clean and keep it clean and get good data. And then the second thing is make sure that you're using a CRM where your phone system connects. Those 2 things, good data, a good CRM with a phone system connecting, you're off to the races then.
Yeah.
But a good CRM with a great phone system like smartphone and bad data, problem.
Yeah.
But when you get those 3 things working, you're setting yourself up for the opportunity to succeed.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember somebody from the show said something that was extremely powerful along those lines. It says, like, when you give somebody a good experience, they tell one person. But when you give somebody a bad experience, they tell 50, 100 different persons. So to what you're saying, if you have bad data and, you're giving those people that you're calling a bad experience, that is definitely going to damage your reputation because they are going to go out there and telling a bunch of people about you.
You're 100% correct.
Yeah. So as a real estate investor, how do you leverage technology?
I think for most real estate investors, I would class technology in a couple different ways. Number one, there's great technology around data. Buying data, sourcing data in the right ways. So that's one part of the equation. Number 2, CRM. Having a robust CRM where you can fully manage everything and connect everything together. 3, your communication tools, phone, text, but also email and other elements of it. 4, your disposition, because most real estate investors always think just about acquisition, but the disposition is where you make your money. Mm-hmm. Like you can get as many deals under contract as you want, but if you can't get those deals closed, you're not going to get that assignment fee if you're a wholesaler, or if you can't, if you spend all this money fixing this house up and you can't flip that thing, right? Like, so A good disposition aid is fantastic. And then AI, thinking about where AI can help your business at the stage your business is at. So if I'm a relatively new real estate investor, I'm probably going to go, you know what? AI is most going to help me in a couple ways. Number one, I can probably leverage AI in the data space, right? Making sure that I'm getting the most, what are the leads that are most likely to sell? And the tools out there, like LeftMain's got a great tool for that. Dataflick and REI Sift's got a great tool for that. There's a number of tools that do that.
Yeah. Shout out to Stephanie Betters.
Steph, absolutely. Steph, LeftMain, they built a powerhouse system called Deal Signals, which integrates all sorts of data and signals of intent so that you know exactly who to call and communicate with, right? That's a great use of AI. And then the second great use of AI is voice, actually. I'm going to be selfish and say voice because why on earth would you not want, let's be honest, if you're a wholesaler and you're getting started, most of the leads you're going to work are probably going to be people under some element of distress that you're able to help, right? We all know the scenarios of divorce, disease, death, et cetera, et cetera. And those people are under pressure. And they're looking for a way out of a situation. So if they call you at 9 p.m. on Friday, chances are they're in an acute state of stress at that moment. Now, you get them to leave a voicemail or talk to a call center who's on a script going, yeah, blah, 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 that kind of shit. They are either going to move on to the next company, right? They're certainly not going to they're not going to feel like you can help their problem. But if you have a trained voice agent that can answer those calls 24/7 and can interact with them, can listen to their problems and empathize with them, take the information and explain them the steps, make them feel comfortable, secure, make them feel heard, make them all that, well, that is worth its weight in gold. So those would be the two areas that I would probably, if I'm a relatively new in real estate, those are the two areas that I would look to integrate AI first.
Yeah. We talked earlier about the future of voice AI. What is the future of voice AI? You say that it's here, but where do you see the future of voice AI go?
I mean, I think we're leading the charge, certainly in some ways on this, and that is skills. That's training. And let me clarify that because everybody trains AI. That's what happens. That's what you do, right? So that sounds pretty obvious. Of course, we got to train it. That's not what I mean. A lot of the tools right now, that you see on the market are what I would class as generalist tools that you have to then train yourself. And so that takes a lot of time and expertise and capabilities, whatever. What we're building and why I think it's the future, what we're building in Smartphone is a recruitment center for voice labor, for voice AI agents. And these agents are vertically and very specifically trained and hyper-skilled trained. And what I mean by that is, I'll give you two examples of agents that we have right now that we're in our system. One is a real estate acquisitions agent, right? Hyper trained in how to ask open questions, how to ferret out details of a property, how to establish intent, how to establish timeline, urgency, all those things that we teach real estate investors all the time, right? But this agent is hyper skilled in that area. They're hyper trained in that area. So that when you start to use them, you're not coming to a blank agent. You're coming to you have hired a highly skilled agent that knows how to do their job, baby. You just have to teach them your bits, what your company is, what's your buy box, etc. Flip side, I just finished building a property maintenance agent that can answer inbound property maintenance calls 24/7.
That's incredible.
On the first ring. But it's skilled. He's skilled. Those agents, they are skilled. He's skilled in how to triage a maintenance problem. because how to triage that, how to establish what's important, how to establish when to tell them to get out of the apartment or not, or how to establish what to do. They're skilled and hyper skilled to the exact same level that a human being is skilled. That's different than having a generalist AI agent that you can just kind of give a bit of information to. I think the future of AI agents in voice are these hyper skilled and very, very specific agents, because that's where performance exists. Performance exists in specificity, not in generalities. And that's what we've built. That's what we're excited about. That's what we're doubling down on for the next 2 years or whatever that arc is. And I think that's going to be what provides people with the most impact from voice AI.
Absolutely. It's been an incredible conversation. We are at the end of the show, but before we go to the last arc of the show, you have a special gift for anybody that is watching this. Would you mind saying what that is? Explain a little bit about what they will get and how they can get it.
Absolutely. And a professional media person would have had a copy here. So, right? So I can do a hero shot or something. But I wrote a book. I wrote a book last year called Click, Call, Scale, which is Click, Call, Scale, the real estate investor's ultimate phone system playbook. And it's basically, look, it's 10 years of me working with real estate investors, hundreds of them across, as a consultant, as working with them in smartphone, hundreds of personally working with them with hundreds of real estate investment companies over the US over the last 10 years. It's me having trained call center agents, having built CRMs. And I basically wrote this book to bring together everything you need to know as a real estate investor on how to be successful on the phone. And I'm giving away absolutely 100% free copy. Anybody who wants to can go to clickcallscale.com. So clickcallscale.com, and there's a form on there right at the top. You put your information in, including your address. We get that, and my team will send you 100% free a copy in the mail.
That is such a huge gift. Thank you for sharing that. By the way, Tom, you are watching this. If you have any questions, please let us know. So now let's move on to the last phase. Those are 5 questions that I've always asked anybody that comes on the show. So the very first one, if you had to share $1 million advice to real estate investors watching this, what would that be?
For real estate investors watching this, it's not going to be a sexy advice, sadly. But business fundamentals matter and consistency matters. And particularly in this sector. A lot of people come into the real estate investment space with big dreams, and they've been they've gone to a mastermind, they've gone to an event, and they've drunk the Kool-Aid and been like, look at me, I got my Ferrari and my plane, and clearly this is easy, right? And that's not true. You want to really be successful in real estate. You have to be consistent and do the basics right. And that's not sexy advice. There's no magic key I'm dangling there, because the truth is that real success in business comes from consistency and doing the fundamentals right.
Mic drop. Boom. Let's go. Next question. If you had to go back to day one when you started smartphone, what advice would you have given to your younger self?
I would say continue to trust yourself and know that you're not. Be confident that you're going to end up well, and you're just not going to know how to get there. Right? Like, people always say, "Oh, you got a plan," and I used to laugh when I had my own consultancy, and people were like, the banks would say, "What's your business plan?" And I'm like, now there's validity in writing things down. There's validity in creating a coherent strategy for your business. Of course there is. But that's not what the banks mean by a business plan. They're like, give me your 3-year cash forecast. The truth is, if I had to go back, I would say, keep backing yourself and know that where you're going to get to is not going to be where you thought you were going, but it's ultimately going to be where you need to end up.
Love that. Yep. So along the journey, you started the business in 2017. Along the journey, what was the biggest lesson that you've learned through growing Smartphone from zero to a $9 million business?
I think the biggest lesson is that scaling a business is really hard. Starting a business is easy, but scaling it is hard, and scaling takes intention. You have to scale with intention. It is, and that is not, any idiot can start a business in a day. But scaling one to 60 people, 65 people and turnover and all that requires a real intention of structure and process and how we work and how we communicate and how we're consistent. And you can't half-ass that shit. Intention really, really matters.
Boom. What is, if you had to share one resource or one book that has made the biggest impact on your life, what would that be?
I'm going to give you 2 books, and you're going to hate me because they're not business books. Because in the whole, I don't give a shit about business books, except for mine.
Except for his.
Good call, Stale.
Yeah.
But no, probably the 2 books that have the biggest impact on me. I'll tell you, from a business perspective, growing a business, it'll be the Lencioni books. So if you're growing a business and you're scaling your team, read the Lencioni books. They are going to blow your mind. Start with The Advantage. But the 2 books that genuinely made the biggest impact on me, one was a book called The Structure of Scientific Revolutions by someone called Thomas Scott Kuhn. And it is basically an examination of how how paradigm shifts happen in science. And he examines like 2,000 years of science and talks about paradigm shifts. And that's really where my instinct comes from with AI and the internet is from his book. And the second is a book called, oh God, now I can't remember it. Let's go with that one then.
Yeah, there you go. Boom. What was the biggest piece of advice that you've ever received from anyone that has made the biggest impact on you?
I think I'll go back to advice my dad gave me. My dad was very good in business, and my dad gave me some advice when I first started, and he said, "You can always give someone a discount. It's really hard to raise your prices." So, like, don't undercut your value. Because you can always set your price here, and then if someone wants to work with you and you want to work with them and you want to give them a discount, great. They're even happier. But what is really hard to do is raise your prices up.
Yeah.
So I'd say that certainly when I had a consultancy, but I think that's stuck with me ever since.
Yeah. Awesome. What is the future look like for you? What are some of the things that you are super excited about? What is that legacy that you're working toward?
I mean, from a technological point of view, definitely the AI infrastructure, these voice agents, the marketplace and recruitment center that we've built is absolutely what I'm looking most forward to. It's groundbreaking and it's exciting. And then, look, I mean, my goal is not to work forever. I'm not one of these guys who has to start again. I have no, I love what I'm doing. I love working with the team and building Smartphone. I love working with everybody in these masterminds and the communities we work with. But the day when the day comes if we're able to sell Smartphone, you will not see me at a computer again, and you won't see me starting another business.
Yeah.
I'm not one of those guys who has to have more and more and more and more. I have other things I want to accomplish in life with music and with, woodworking and flying a plane and all that. And I will happily close the laptop, put it to the side and say that part. One thing I've realized is I've got nothing left to prove. There aren't that many people who scale a business. No, I didn't do it alone, but who have been involved and driving with other people the scaling of a business to close to $10 million. That's not something everybody does. I've met and exceeded all of my wildest ideas of what I could accomplish in business. I don't have to prove anything, and I don't have to, I don't have a mindset of I need more, and but what if I keep going? I can have another 10 million or whatever. No, I will happily close the book on that and say that has been a great accomplishment. Now, what's my next opportunity to engage with life, not business?
Absolutely. Man, it's such a pleasure having you on the show, and you've dropped some knowledge like around AI, around smartphone, and like cold calling. Actually, that has opened my eyes on some other things that I wasn't even aware of. So thank you for coming and sharing on the show today. Do you have any parting advice for anyone watching this?
I mean, I think if you're, the only thing I always ever say to people who are thinking of, particularly if you're thinking of starting a business, then the number one thing I always say to people is you have to be willing to take the risk and back yourself. And if that scares you and you don't want to do it, then don't bother, because you'll fail.
Yeah. Boom. That was awesome. Mic drop. I need to buy me some mics.
Say, can I do this instead of Tom's that?
Boom, baby. Bam, not boom.
Yeah, I was gonna say boom's probably someone else.
Someone else.
We're gonna get a legal cease and desist.
Yep. So last question for you, for anybody that wants to get a hold of you, that is very interested in learning more, like any investors out there that is interested in learning more about smartphone, how can they get a hold of you, and how can they start working with you?
Absolutely. Well, so number one, you can go over to clickcallscale.com. And get your book. Number two, head over to Smartphone. That's SMRTPHONE.io. And you can get involved with the platform. And if you want to reach me personally, I am on Instagram and LinkedIn. And I'm always delighted for, if anybody reaches out, my view is you should give anybody 30 minutes of your time. Mm-hmm. And if someone wants to ask questions, or if someone, wants some advice, I'm happy to try and help in any way I can. Yeah.
So you mentioned Instagram and LinkedIn. Obviously, LinkedIn is probably going to be your full name. What is the Instagram handle that they can find you? Do you know?
I think it's JS Fleming. I'm pretty sure, but I will say I'm terrible at social media. But I think it's jsfleming.com. JS Fleming for Instagram.
Awesome. Jordan, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. Thank you for coming here and sharing. And I mean, for making it happen too. I know your flight got canceled. Always for a great reason too, but I
got to tell you, I mean, and a shout out again to Family Mastermind, because you and I just met 2 days ago. Mm-hmm. And at the dinner, I was really happy to chat with you. And then, weirdly, I was supposed to fly out this morning at 6 a.m. My flight got canceled. I have suddenly an extra day here. And not only, I get the pleasure of coming to see you, build a bit more of a relationship, come on this show. I got right before this, I was over with Adam and Whitley and Tracy at Seven Figure Flipping. They invited me to come over and say hi to everybody. So family turned a day which was just like, oh man, I missed my flight. This is going to be a crappy day, is sitting around waiting for the next, to a day full of building better relationships, meeting people, and speaking directly to people. So, what an opportunity, and I'm so grateful for you for fitting me in at such a last-minute notice. I think I texted you at 5 a.m.
Yep. Yep, I woke up.
Which is probably not compliant.
But I already knew that was coming from you, so I know the sender. So it's funny because, it
was WhatsApp as well.
It was WhatsApp, yeah. And it's funny because last night I was joking with my family. We have a group chat, and they all were texting jokes and stuff like that. And I texted all of them back. I said, "Hey guys, I want to go to sleep." And then my brother responded, "Put it on how do you call it?
It's like silent
mode." What was it, Jeff? not silent mode. There was a thing, but put it on silent mode. And I went. This is the very first time I went and put it on silent mode, so I could go to sleep because they were like laughing and doing all of that. And this morning I woke up and it says like, "Oh, here's all the stuff that you've missed," and then yours was on the top, and I was like, "Oh yeah, let's do it." So that was kind of cool. So yeah, super grateful for like organizations like that. Again, shout out to all of the great masterminds out there. Shout out to CG. Shout out to Family. Shout out to Coaching Inc. and shout out to Seven Figure Flipping. Obviously, those are all the organizations I know that have given to you and given to me as well. So yeah, there you have it. Let's go, baby. It's fire. Make it a fantastic day. And if you want to get connected and learning more about smartphone, hit up Jordan. Let's go. It's fire, baby. Boom.